So this is a pair of the iconic New Balance 574. And apparently in this box, cracked, is a barefoot shoe with a style that is unmistakably Splay. And I have some questions. I wanted to see them side by side so we can answer how much does the Splay shoe really copy the details of the 574? How's the build quality of both of the shoes? And how do they both feel wearing them all day long, right? Are these Splay shoes a healthy alternative or a cheap sham? By the way, Splay is a shoe brand that makes minimalist barefoot style shoes that are supposed to be a healthy alternative for your foot, letting them do a little bit more work. And they just released this Runner V1 style, selling for $84, not so subtly competing with the New Balance at $90. So I haven't even seen this yet. All right, so, oh my gosh.
What the heck, why are these the same shoe?
Okay. So I wore the New Balance 574 for years until I switched to barefoot shoes. So when I saw this advertised, I immediately noticed, like, holy cow. So we can see the tag on the tongue blatantly ripped off, in my opinion. I mean, even the lines through the V1 and the NB, then you've got the logo on the side. The New Balance one is reflective. Splay's doesn't seem to be. Both have them on both sides. New Balance kind of has this cool strip of lighter suede to differentiate the colors that the Splay does not. Splay seems to be made of, maybe it's nylon or something. New Balance is like mesh and suede. Laces, pretty similar. New Balances are nicer. They have a lot more texture, but they both have kind of the flat cotton laces, I'm assuming. Then you've got the back. Once again, New Balances is gonna be reflective. Splay's is not, but man, that logo, I mean, even the font feels like they're ripping them off. Tread on the bottom. I remember when I wore these did eventually wear down, and that's part of the reason I had to get rid of them. So Splay's doesn't look bad in comparison, but obviously a little bit more simplified. The colors, I didn't know if the colors would be more different. They're very, very close. The Splay shoe feels ever so slightly darker, and there's just a little bit less dynamic of a design, right? It's a little bit more plain looking. It's not just like, oh, we designed a similar shoe. It's like we literally got as close as we could possibly get, and while not having legal problems, apparently, in my opinion. And then Splay is gonna be flatter. We can see the heel elevation in the New Balances, the kind of arch support in there. And then the toe box definitely is significantly wider in the Splay shoe. Although when I got these New Balances, I actually was kind of surprised, and they actually didn't feel that different from the Zero shoes I was wearing, which made me kind of question Zero shoes altogether. But regardless, let's compare the insoles of these. Decent amount wider on both sides. For the Splay shoe, that's good. And it looks like the Splay shoe might be a little more ready for you to take out the insole, being a barefoot shoe, knowing that people like the most minimal stuff. And by the way, let me show you the Zero insole. Remember how much wider the Splay one was? Like, the Zero insole is literally the exact same width as the New Balance one. So I don't know if that's points for New Balance or points taken away from Zero shoes. Maybe a little bit of both. Anyway though. All right, so the task for today is simple. I'll wear the Splays tomorrow, but I want to do my best to express how it feels to wear both of these shoes. Now, one challenge of that is that I don't normally wear shoes inside my house all day. I work from home, so that's kind of what's gonna happen. And two, I've been wearing only barefoot shoes for years at this point, so I'm not exactly coming at this from an unbiased perspective, but I still wanna do my best to explain the differences and kind of what I notice about wearing both of these shoes all day for whatever I end up doing. Bro, you're right in front of the shot. I'm trying to work, but I feel like you're watching me. By the way, I do have a real job, so can you leave, please? I wore these shoes and loved them for years, so it really feels like putting my foot in an old friend. Also, yes, I wear these for work, okay? So my head doesn't hurt. And it kind of feels like I'm leaning forward because of the heel elevation. I'm not really used to that anymore. Update. I think it's pushing my hips forwards with the heel, and my lower back kind of hurts. Like my hips. And that's a way that I used to stand much more with my legs locked and my heels forward when I wore shoes like this more, instead of the flat shoes like I do now. I've been standing, switching to sitting. weirdly enough, like my feet are kind of the least of my issues right now. It is like 2 p.m. I think. These shoes are really quite nice. The toe box pleasantly wide, pretty breathable. I'm kind of impressed, and my expectations are not high for the Splay shoes. I thought it would be more torturous to wear them. And the worst part is just if you're standing in them for a long time. I do not think that's great. We're gonna stand again for the last stretch of the day here, and I'm also gonna try taking out the insoles. Yeah, let's see how this feels. Okay, update, this sucks. I'm putting the insoles back in. All right, it's the end of the day. Just got back from the gym, taking off the New Balances. To be honest, I thought wearing barefoot shoes for years, it was gonna be a more painful experience, but I was pleasantly surprised. These are really nice shoes. It makes me miss them slightly. My only issue is when I was standing for long periods of time, my lower back and hips definitely got kind of tight. I definitely did feel a little bit more pressure on my arches, stuff like that, which I think is supposed to give you like arch support, but I don't really desire that or want it because my arch just activates on its own. It doesn't need something there to be pushing into it, right? Yeah. And that's kind of the idea with the barefoot shoes. So, but overall, color me impressed. These are a really nice shoe. They're a well-built shoe. These stink a little bit. Here we go again. So I get to compare these to both the New Balances from yesterday and all the barefoot shoes I normally wear. All right, I feel a little tight, maybe. What? Gotta smell another dog's pee, my dude? Come on. So I'm already noticing something concerning. At least the right shoe is a little too tight, which is actually a little bit painful. So I might have to take the insoles out of these earlier just to try to give my foot a little bit more space. It actually feels tighter than the New Balance at this point. Toe box is still probably slightly wider, but it doesn't really feel that much wider right now. Yeah, it's kind of an odd shoe. Yeah, so they don't have half sizes of the Splays. And they specifically say, if you're in between sizes, we recommend that you order the smaller size. If anything, Splay shoes run a little large for men. Well, I'm not sure if that was a great recommendation for me. I oftentimes get an 11.5 with barefoot shoes. So I got a 12 with the New Balances, and I got an 11 with the Splays. So that's just kind of a little unfortunate, but whatever. If you're a person who likes really barefoot shoes, I would be careful getting a smaller size. Also real quick, this tack height is 15 millimeters. Plus 3.5 millimeter insole. Made in China, baby. Here we go again. Can you even see me? Update, it is 8:46 a.m. My right heel hurts for some reason. I will probably take out the insoles very soon. It is 9:15. See if this makes any difference. The insole does seem to be like thicker in the middle there, so I wonder if I'll feel less arch support. I think it does feel a little bit better. I'll give you an update in a little bit. Goodbye. Hey, figured I should make another update. I feel pretty much fine at this point. My posture is much more normal. I'm not having the same problems as yesterday. So my feet are a little bit more active. I think without the insoles is better. Would definitely prefer standing barefoot if I could, but this is better than the New Balances. All right, it's about 1:40 p.m. My right foot is not as uncomfortable anymore. Yeah, walking around with them now, without the insoles, they're not bad, okay? They're not bad. I'd say I actually like how the soles of the shoe feel. They're not super foamy and squishy. It's like a thicker foam, rubbery composite material, maybe. It's kind of nice having a little bit more cushioning while also not being too squishy or having a super high stack height, right? So that is one kind of cool, unique-ish thing about this shoe. Right, dude? Well, here we are again, taking the shoes off for the day. These are much better for standing in all day long, I will say that. After removing the insole, I was able to kind of ignore the fact that I had shoes on. And I do feel like they fill kind of an interesting pocket with the 15 millimeter stack height. It feels a little more rigid than something really squishy like a boulder boot, and I kind of like that. So that's one kind of cool, unique thing about this shoe. However, I'm not impressed by the build quality. you really only got to look at both of them for a second to start noticing the big differences. The New Balance feels like a much more intentional design that's just made to have a foot in it and hug it correctly. This just doesn't feel quite as intentional to me. There's suede on both shoes, a lot of suede on this one, more so, and it's a nicer suede, in my opinion, where you can see the texture a little bit more. The outsole on both is pretty similar, as far as I can tell, as far as the materials. You can also see the logo on the side, kind of just looks like it was slapped on there, and it is huge. I don't think that looks very nice. And I mean, this just feels like a shoe that was designed to copy this shoe and appeal to the barefoot shoe audience. I mean, even here, I see like a spot that the glue missed, and it's a little bit messier. Pretty stark difference between these and the New Balance, which isn't that surprising. New Balance has been around forever. There's actually a great Rose Anvil video that I would recommend watching if you're interested in the New Balance 574. He knows a lot more about shoes than I do, so definitely check that out. It's a pretty interesting video. Whoops. So I don't mind how the Splay shoe felt after I took the insole out, but to me it feels like a cheap, rushed knockoff with inferior materials and an inferior design. It would have sat better with me if they spent time designing a shoe that has quality that competes with New Balance, or if they just develop their own design in this style that doesn't blatantly rip off another shoe, in my opinion. It's just weird. Don't do that. I wish you made Puss in Boots to compete with Kung Fu Panda instead of the little panda fighter. The logo, the back, the tag, I'll just put a weird taste in my mouth. But maybe it's just me. What do you guys think? Maybe we can start a discussion in the comments if you don't agree. That being said, I wouldn't blame anybody for getting these. They get the job done. They're a minimal kind of shoe. The 15mm stack height is kind of nice. They're more foot shaped, might be better for your foot in the long run, right? But I'm gonna return mine. And the New Balances, very impressed actually. Toe box, surprisingly wide, pretty cool. There's just a lot to respect here. Wish I could wear them, but I'm also not gonna wear these. If you want to see the type of shoes that I do want to wear,